Okay, we are Team Dead Fish. My name's Ethan. I'm going to start an intro on talk a little bit about the concept behind this. So maybe the next slide. So this is scale up. So this is what might happen if sea levels rise between now and 100 years from now, 2100. But the problem with this is it like, okay, maybe there's like 5% of the Earth gone. I mean, we could say goodbye to New York, but like this happens so slowly, and this happens, and it doesn't seem sort of necessarily relevant. So what we wanted to do is to show this and create an experience that really creates this sort of visceral impact. So next one. So kind of what's more visceral than this idea of like the life and death of this? And so what I love about VR is how everything is beautifully scaled to the body, and so we had this idea of let's experience the water rising as the sort of core mechanic, and let's make this a physical reality that you really sense the urgency of the situation. So this, in terms of a learning objective, and this was new for me. So these are these RCP projections, and this is about 5 years ago. They determined here are the sort of 4 ways we could go depending on our greenhouse gas release. So this is kind of like, I want students at the end of this to have a sense of like, okay, I know the language, I maybe know these terms, and I also really feel it. Go to the next one. So the way we wanted to show greenhouse gas is, so we're going to be in the water. We're going to have this kind of this raising level. So maybe we have a tank that shows gases go out, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you guys remember the Deep Horizons, when that happened a couple years ago. It was sort of the epitome of like this crazy environmental, it's like slow motion explosion. And so I like that kind of metaphor for what we do, and trying to control something that's almost like a volcanic eruption. And you know, when CO2 rises, you get different rises in temperature. And as you guys, we can go to the next one. And as temperature rises, we have sea ice melt, and like, how could we make something as dramatic as possible? This is like, obviously a glacier falling down. So maybe that's part of the experience. And we can do the next one. And merge together, the ecosystem collapse. You guys have been talking about coral, and maybe we should, and then maybe just subtly playing on some familiar characters, and then some then this sort of like symbol of like kind of some humor, I guess. So those are the aspects we're going to show, and then I think there's one more. So generally, that's fine. So generally, this was the kind of concept that began to build. Of depending on what pathway, if we keep it to RCP 4.5, we don't go underwater, but this sort of shows the different potential futures. We have some coral, we have some fish swimming around, so it's something that's above the water and below the water. And the next step is for Paul to introduce the actual prototype.
All right. Headset on. Okay, so what we have here is basically a waterscape. We're served in a lot of metaphors here. So we have a CO2 tank right here. As you can see, the year is increasing. And we're showing how much the carbon level is at this time. We went for the worst case scenario. So carbon escaping into the atmosphere. And over here we have our giant iceberg with tons of ice cubes, like actual literal ice cubes coming off of it. We have our coral reef, we've got our fish, and over time, the water level is rising. So, like, I actually can no longer get my head above the water level at this point. And it will continue to get worse as we get closer to 2100. And as time goes on, these fish are actually going to turn into skeletons. So, like that one right there. So, whether it be a slow fade over time, or killed by the ice cubes.
Oh boy.
Like that one.
Oh.
So,
Ouch.
but yeah, by the time we hit 2060 or thereabouts, as you can see, it's slowly but surely turning into a skeleton. Just started fading away. So yeah, basically a lot of metaphors going on here. You know, CO2 tank for the rising CO2 levels, the water level literally rising. There is no possible way I can get above it at this point. Basically, when you start this, it's where it would have been now. Fast forward to 2100, the sea level will have risen like 4.5 feet. CO2 levels will be around 1200, I think. And goodbye fish, goodbye reefs. This will have actually melted instead of just spewing ice cubes everywhere, but yeah. Yeah, that's about that.
Great.